The red dust of Mars swirled outside the kitchen window as James Walker prepared breakfast. His weathered hands moved with precision, cracking eggs into a pan while the coffee maker hummed quietly in the background. At 52, he still maintained the disciplined routine from his military days, though he'd traded his combat gear for simple civilian clothes years ago. "Dad, have you seen my quantum physics textbook?" Emma's voice echoed down the stairs of their modest Mars colony home. At 16, she had inherited his sharp mind and her mother's curious spirit. "Check under your star charts," he called back, a small smile crossing his face. The sound of shuffling papers and a triumphant "found it" followed shortly after. James glanced at the old metal box hidden behind the kitchen's false panel. Inside lay the tools of his former trade, weapons and equipment that hadn't seen use in almost 2 decades. Sometimes, during quiet moments like these, memories of his past life, as the Ghost, would surface. The name had once struck fear into the hearts of the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. Emma bounded down the stairs, her school bag slung over one shoulder. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes sparkled with the same intensity that had made her father such a formidable operative. "You're making the special Earth-style breakfast today. What's the occasion?" Can't a father cook for his daughter? James placed a plate of eggs, synthetic bacon, and toast in front of her. Real bacon was hard to come by on Mars, but the lab-grown variety had gotten pretty close to the original taste. As Emma ate, James watched the news hologram floating above their kitchen counter. Reports of increased Crimson Nebula Syndicate activity in the outer colony scrolled past. He felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the instinct to act, to protect. But those days were behind him now. "Did you know," Emma said between bites, "that humans are the only species in the known galaxy that still eat their meals hot? Professor Reed says it's because we discovered fire before we developed advanced intelligence. Most alien species think it's weird." James nodded, enjoying her enthusiasm for xenoanthropology. It was strange how life had turned out. Here he was, a former Special Forces operator who had once been the boogeyman of the galaxy's underworld, listening to his daughter chat about alien eating habits. The colony's artificial day cycle brightened outside, simulating an Earth morning. Through their reinforced windows, they could see the massive atmospheric processors in the distance, slowly turning the Martian air breathable. Humanity's determination to reshape worlds to their needs had shocked many alien species, but it was that same drive that had earned them both fear and respect across the galaxy. "Don't forget your environmental suit," James reminded Emma as she finished breakfast. Even with the terraforming well underway, the Martian surface wasn't quite ready for humans to breathe freely. "Got it right here." She patted her bag. "Oh, and Dad, the school's planning an excursion to the new xenobiology lab next week. Need your signature on the permission slip." James picked up the digital pad she slid across the table, quickly reading through it. The lab was state-of-the-art, with top-notch security. He'd actually consulted on its design last year, though Emma didn't know that. His private security consultation work was far more boring than his past life. Exactly how he liked it. "Signed and sent," he said, pressing his thumb to the pad. "Have a good day at school, kiddo." Emma gave him a quick hug before heading out. James watched through the window as she joined the stream of students heading toward the colony's education center, their environmental suits giving them a slightly bulky appearance. In these moments, James felt truly at peace. The galaxy was vast and often dangerous, but here in their little corner of Mars, he'd managed to build the quiet life he'd always wanted for his daughter. If anyone from his past could see the Ghost now, contentedly sipping coffee and planning his security consulting schedule, they probably wouldn't believe their eyes. Little did James know, the quiet life he'd worked so hard to build was about to be shattered, and the galaxy would soon remember why humans were considered the most dangerous species when they had something to protect. The emergency alert flashed on James's wrist device during a routine security consultation. His client, A nervous Martian bank manager was in the middle of describing his false weaknesses when James's blood ran cold. The message was from Emma's school. "We need to reschedule," he said, already moving. The bank manager started to protest, but something in James's eyes made him step back without a word. The scene at the school was chaos. Local security forces had established a perimeter around the xenobiology lab, their red and blue lights cutting through the thin Martian atmosphere. James's military training kicked in as he assessed the situation. Scorch marks on the walls, signs of energy weapons, and most telling, the distinctive burn pattern of a ship's emergency takeoff. "Mr. Walker." Dr. Reed, Emma's xenoanthropology teacher, rushed over. Her environmental suit was scuffed, and her voice shook. "They came during the lab tour. 6 of them, aliens from the Crimson Nebula Syndicate. We tried to stop them, but their technology. They had weapons we've never seen before." James's mind was already racing, calculating possibilities. "Show me the security footage." The footage showed everything. The aliens, tall figures in advanced combat suits, had breached the lab's defenses with suspicious ease. They moved with military precision, heading straight for Emma's class. But something was off about their behavior. They seemed confused, arguing among themselves after grabbing Emma. "They kept saying something about Trade Minister Koss's daughter," Dr. Reed explained. "I tried to tell them they had the wrong person, but they wouldn't listen." James watched the footage again. The alien's leader, distinguished by red markings on his suit, had used a neural suppressor on Emma when she tried to fight back. His daughter's resistance had surprised them. They clearly weren't expecting a teenager to know basic combat moves. James had taught her those moves, calling them self-defense basics. In reality, they were watered-down versions of techniques that had once made the Ghost legendary. The local authorities arrived, looking apologetic. "Mr. Walker, I'm Chief Martinez. I'm sorry, but our hands are tied. The Crimson Nebula Syndicate operates outside our jurisdiction, and with the current diplomatic tensions. Politics." James spat the word. He was already walking away when his old encrypted communicator, untouched for years, buzzed in his pocket. The message was simple. "Wrong girl. Want Trade Minister Koss's daughter. We'll trade once we have correct target. No authorities or she dies. Coordinates for exchange will follow." They didn't even know who they had. They didn't know that instead of grabbing a bargaining chip, they'd just taken the daughter of the most lethal operative the galaxy had ever known. James returned home, his movements mechanical. The house felt empty without Emma's constant stream of facts about alien cultures or her latest scientific discoveries. He went straight to the hidden panel in the kitchen, the one Emma had never known about. The metal box opened with a soft click. Inside lay the tools that had made him a legend. A chameleon suit that could mimic any species' appearance, a neural disruptor that could incapacitate most known life forms, and various other devices that had helped him earn the name Ghost. Each piece held memories of operations that had shaped galactic politics, of moments when he'd been the thing that criminals feared in the dark. His emergency comlink lit up. Admiral Thompson's aged face appeared, lines of worry creasing his features. "Just got word. It's really happening, isn't it? The Ghost is coming out of retirement." James checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. "They took my daughter, Admiral. They just don't know whose daughter they took. The galaxy's gotten soft, James. They've forgotten what humans are capable of when pushed. Especially humans like you." The Admiral paused. "I'll send you everything we have on recent syndicate movements. And James, make them remember why they used to fear us." As the Martian night fell, James Walker disappeared. In his place, the Ghost emerged, ready to remind the galaxy why humans were considered the most dangerous species in known space. Somewhere out there, Emma was waiting. And her father was coming for her. The Crossroads space station hung in the void like a twisted metal spider web, its arms stretching out in every direction. Ships of all sizes docked and departed, carrying both legal cargo and illegal secrets. In the darkest corner of the station's roughest bar, a nervous alien information dealer named Rex shifted in his seat. "I heard the ghost was dead," Rex muttered, his 4 eyes darting around the room. "Everyone said he retired years ago." "Do I look dead to you?" James sat across from him, his chameleon suit currently mimicking the appearance of a common cargo hauler. The transformation was perfect, except for his eyes. They remained intensely human, and they hadn't blinked once during the entire conversation. Rex's scales changed color slightly, a sign of fear in his species. "Look, if anyone finds out I talk to you." "They won't." James placed a small device on the table. "Because in 10 minutes, this entire station's security footage for the last hour will disappear. Now talk." The information came quickly after that. The syndicate ship carrying Emma had stopped at the crossroads for fuel and supplies. They were headed to Nexus Prime, a quarantined world that most species avoided. The planet's surface was littered with ancient weapons and dangerous technology that had already killed countless treasure hunters. "They think they're being clever," Rex explained, his voice shaking. "The planet's automatic defense systems keep most ships away, but they have codes to bypass them. They think they'll be safe there until they can make the exchange." James stood up. "They're wrong." Back on his ship, James activated the secure communication channel Admiral Thompson had provided. The Admiral's hologram appeared, looking concerned. "I've got something you need to see," Thompson said. "We intercepted a transmission from the Kidnappers to their base. Your daughter, she's causing them trouble." The video feed showed Emma in a holding cell. She appeared calm, but James recognized the look in her eyes. She was analyzing everything, just like he taught her. The aliens had taken her environmental suit, probably thinking it would keep her weak. They didn't understand that humans raised on Mars had been genetically modified to survive in lower oxygen environments. "They've had to change her cell 3 times, Thompson continued, pride in his voice. "She figured out their locking systems, nearly escaped twice. They're keeping her sedated now when they move her. She's definitely your daughter, James." "That's my girl," James whispered. Then, louder, "What about the Nexus Prime defense codes?" "Already sent to your ship's computer." "But James, that planet, it's quarantined for a reason. The ancient weapons there don't just kill, they do things to people. Change them. That's why most species can't survive there." James began programming the course into his navigation system. "Most species aren't human. We adapt. It's what we do." The ship's engines hummed to life as James prepared for departure. He checked his equipment one last time. Chameleon suit at full power, neural disruptor charge, and a few other surprises he kept hidden even during his active duty days. "One more thing," Thompson added. "Word's getting around. 3 major crime syndicates have already pulled their operations from that sector. They remember what happened last time. The ghost went hunting." "Good." James's ship detached from the crossroads. "Let them run. Let them warn others. By the time I'm done, the galaxy will have a new story to tell about why you don't take a human's child." The stars stretched into lines as his ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. Ahead lay Nexus Prime, a world so dangerous that even its original inhabitants had abandoned it. But they hadn't been human. They hadn't possessed the one thing that made humans the most terrifying species in the galaxy: the sheer, unstoppable drive to protect their own. In her cell, Emma watched her captors and waited. She knew her father would come, and she planned to be ready when he did. Fear spread through the galaxy's criminal underworld faster than any ship could travel. 3 simple words passed from species to species, planet to planet. "The ghost returns." Crime lords who hadn't thought about Earth's most dangerous operative in years suddenly began moving their operations. Others started calling in old favors, seeking protection that deep down they knew wouldn't help. On the bridge of his ship, James monitored these movements. Each panicked relocation, every frightened transmission, helped him build a clearer picture of the syndicate's operations. His vessel's AI compiled the data, creating a glowing map of criminal activity leading toward Nexus Prime. Their fear is becoming a problem. Admiral Thompson's hologram reported. The syndicate leadership is getting nervous. They've figured out who Emma is, and they're divided on what to do. James continued checking his weapons. Good. Scared people make mistakes. They're right to be scared, Thompson added. The last report from their ship says Emma managed to hack their food dispensing system during her last escape attempt. Reprogrammed it to only serve human-compatible meals. The aliens on board had to eat emergency rations for 2 days before they fixed it. A small smile crossed James's face. His daughter wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back in her own clever way. The ship's sensors picked up an approaching vessel. Small, fast, and broadcasting a very specific signal that James hadn't seen in almost 20 years. He didn't shoot it down. The pilot who docked with James's ship was a member of species known for their calm nature. Today, however, he was anything but calm. I bring a message from Boss Krell, he said, trying to control his trembling. He wishes to negotiate. James said nothing, letting the silence build until the messenger couldn't stand it. The syndicate admits they made a mistake. They offer to return your daughter, with compensation, if you'll simply. They're on Nexus Prime, James interrupted. It wasn't a question. The messenger's facial tentacles curled in surprise. How did you? Because Krell is predictable. He thinks the planet's defenses will protect him. Tell him I'm coming. Tell him what happens next is his choice. After the messenger departed, James received another transmission. This one showed Emma, still in her cell, but now she was teaching her guards about human history. She looked tired but unafraid. Did you know, Emma was saying in the recording, that humans were the only species to develop spaceflight before they had unified their planet. Other species think we're crazy for that. They say we were too impatient, too driven. Maybe they're right. The guards looked uncomfortable, but they listened. Emma had inherited her father's ability to command attention, even as a prisoner. But that's why we're different, she continued. Humans don't wait for perfect conditions. We adapt. We overcome. And we never give up on what matters to us. James enhanced the video, noting every detail of her surroundings. She wasn't just giving a history lesson. She was leaving him clues. The way she emphasized certain words, the seemingly casual gestures she made. She was telling him about the facility's layout. Sir, his ship's AI interrupted. We're approaching the Nexus Prime quarantine zone. Defense systems are active. The massive planet loomed ahead, its surface scarred by ancient wars. Automated weapon platforms orbited like metal vultures, destroying any ship that came too close. The AI displayed the defense codes Rex had provided, but James hesitated before using them. Calculate alternate approach, he ordered. Find me a blind spot. Sir, the sensors cover every angle. There are no blind spots. James began powering up his ship's experimental stealth systems, technology he'd kept hidden even from Admiral Thompson. There are always blind spots. You just have to make them yourself. As his ship vanished from all scanning systems, James prepared for the most dangerous insertion of his career. Somewhere on that deadly world below, his daughter was waiting. And the ghost was about to remind the galaxy why humans had earned their reputation as the most adaptable and most lethal species in known space. James's ship sliced through Nexus Prime's toxic atmosphere like a knife through smoke. The planet's surface below was a maze of ancient ruins and deadly technology, all bathed in the sickly green light of its twin suns. Automated defense systems fired randomly into the air, but his stealth systems held. Landing zone identified, his ship's AI announced. However, environmental readings are concerning. Atmospheric toxicity at 300% lethal levels for most species. Unknown energy signatures detected. Recommend immediate retreat. James checked his modified environment suit. What's the survival rate for humans? Based on available data, less than 10%. Better odds than I usually get, James muttered as he prepared for landing. His suit's systems synchronized with his neural implants, old military hardware that most people thought had been decommissioned years ago. The ship touched down in a crater beside a sprawling alien city. Buildings made of black metal stretched impossibly high, their surfaces covered in pulsing lights that hadn't dimmed despite thousands of years of abandonment. The ground was littered with devices that occasionally sparked with strange energy. James activated his suit's adaptive camouflage and moved out. The landscape was worse than the scans had shown. Pools of liquid that defied gravity floated in the air. Strange machines wandered aimlessly, still following programs written by their long-dead masters. In the distance, he could see the Syndicate's fortress, a recent construction that looked primitive compared to the ancient city around it. His suit's sensors picked up movement. A group of Syndicate guards was returning from patrol, their environmental suits much bulkier than his. They moved nervously, jumping at every sound. One of them was speaking. "This place isn't right," the guard said, his translator making his alien speech understandable. "Did you see what happened to Scout Team 3? The ruins. They changed them." "Boss Krell says humans can't survive here," another replied. "Says the atmosphere alone will kill them. We just need to wait until the trade for the real target." James smiled behind his mask. They still didn't understand. Humans had spread across the galaxy precisely because of their ability to survive where other species couldn't. Every colony world had required adaptation, modification, survival against impossible odds. This planet was just another challenge. An ancient defense drone spotted the guard patrol and attacked. The aliens scattered, their weapons proving useless against the ancient technology. James watched, learning. The drone's attack pattern was complex, but not random. Like everything else on this world, it followed rules that could be understood and exploited. He moved closer to the fortress, collecting data. His implants processed the information faster than any standard computer, finding patterns in the chaos. The ancient machines weren't random at all. They were all part of a system that could be predicted. Inside the fortress, through a high window, he caught a glimpse of Emma. She was being moved to a new cell, still under guard. Even sedated, she was observing everything around her. She turned slightly, looking out the window. And for a moment, James thought she spotted him despite his camouflage. A massive explosion rocked the ancient city. One of the Syndicate's ships had tried to leave and triggered some kind of orbital defense. The blast wave knocked several patrol teams off their feet, but James stayed perfectly still, letting his suit absorb the shock, watching as the fortress's defenses automatically activated. Now he had everything he needed. The patrol patterns, the ancient machine's programming, the fortress's security responses, and most importantly, Emma's location. Other species thought surviving on Nexus Prime was impossible because they tried to overpower its dangers. But humans learned to work with the chaos. James checked his weapons one final time. Night was falling, and the ancient city's mysterious lights were growing stronger. It was time to remind the Syndicate why humans were different, why they were feared. It was time for the ghost to bring his daughter home. The fortress's power grid failed exactly when James planned it would. He had spent hours reprogramming ancient security drones, sending them to attack specific power nodes in a precise sequence. As darkness fell over the Syndicate's base, panic spread among its defenders. "Get those lights back on." Boss Krell's voice boomed through the fortress. The alien crime lord stood in his command center, his thick armored hide reflecting the emergency lighting. "The ghost is coming, you fools. He's already here." In her cell, Emma felt the sedatives wearing off. Her guards were distracted, arguing about backup generators. She slowly reached for the makeshift lockpick she had created from her food tray. They hadn't found it during their last cell search. James moved through the fortress like a shadow. His chameleon suit had mapped the ancient city's energy patterns, and now it mimicked them perfectly. To the fortress's sensors, He was just another piece of alien technology, harmless and ignored. The first group of guards never saw him coming. Their neural implants simply stopped working, courtesy of a frequency James had discovered by studying the ancient ruins. They dropped without a sound, alive but unable to move or communicate. Contact in Sector 7. Someone shouted over the fortress comm system. No, wait. Sector 3. He's everywhere. He wasn't everywhere, but fear made them see shadows in every corner. James had spent decades learning how different species reacted to stress. Humans adapted to fear, used it to sharpen their focus. Most other species simply broke under it. Emma heard the chaos growing outside her cell. The lockpick was almost in position. She had learned about this type of security system during one of her father's casual engineering lessons. At the time, she thought he was just being interesting. Now she understood he had been preparing her all along. Boss Krell's voice crackled through the fortress again. Bring me the girl. We'll use her as a shield. Even the ghost won't risk. The transmission cut off as James reached the command center. He had used the ancient city's technology to create a path of false sensor readings, leading most of the guards away from his real target. Impossible, Krell whispered as James appeared in front of him, the chameleon suit deactivating. The atmosphere alone should have killed you. The energy fields should have driven me mad. James finished. Like they did to your Scout Team 3. The difference is, humans don't fight the chaos. We embrace it. We adapt to it. We become it. The crime lord reached for his weapon, but James was faster. The neural disruptor fired, but Krell's thick hide protected him. The alien leader smiled, until he realized James had expected this. The floor beneath Krell suddenly sparked with energy. James had spent hours studying how the ancient ruins channeled power. Now he used that knowledge, turning the very fortress against its occupants. Wait. Krell raised his hands. The girl, your daughter, she's special, isn't she? Like you. She understood things about this place that my scientists couldn't. Let me make you an offer. A loud alarm interrupted him. Emma's cell security had been breached. She was free. No more offers, James said, activating a device he had planted in the fortress's systems. Throughout the base, the reprogrammed security drones turned on their masters. Not killing. James was still human, still had lines he wouldn't cross, but efficiently neutralizing every guard and soldier. Krell backed away, real fear in his eyes. What are you? I'm a father, James replied simply. And you took my daughter. The fight that followed was brief but intense. Krell's natural armor made him nearly invulnerable to normal weapons. But James didn't use normal weapons. He used the planet itself, the ancient technologies that every other species feared. Because that was what humans did best, turning the impossible into an advantage. As Krell finally fell unconscious, Emma appeared in the doorway, lockpick still in hand. Father and daughter looked at each other across the chaos they had created. Sorry I'm late, James said. Emma smiled. I knew you'd come. I just had to be ready when you did. The twin suns of Nexus Prime rose over a changed landscape. James's ship lifted off from the ancient city, leaving behind a fortress full of unconscious syndicate members and a lot of confused security drones. In the co-pilot's seat, Emma watched the mysterious ruins grow smaller below them. So, she said, breaking the comfortable silence, the ghost. James kept his eyes on the controls, but a small smile crossed his face. It was a long time ago. Not that long. Emma pulled up some data on her tablet. While they had me sedated, I managed to access their criminal database. Did you really once make an entire pirate fleet surrender without firing a single shot? They surrendered because they thought their ships were haunted, James explained. All I did was use their ventilation systems to create some strange noises and move a few objects when no one was looking. Aliens can be very superstitious. As they broke through the atmosphere, Emma grew more serious. All those lessons you gave me. Engineering, psychology, survival skills. They weren't just for fun, were they? I wanted you to be prepared. James checked their pursuit sensors out of habit, but there was no one following. The syndicate had learned its lesson. The galaxy can be dangerous, especially for humans. We're still new out here, still proving ourselves. By proving that we're the most dangerous species around. Emma raised an eyebrow. By proving we're the most adaptable, James corrected. Look at what you did in there. You didn't just try to escape. You studied their systems, learned their weaknesses, even taught them about human history to make them let their guard down. That's what makes humans special. We don't just survive, we learn and adapt. Admiral Thompson's hologram appeared on the ship's console. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. The Syndicate's leadership is, well, they're falling over themselves to apologize. They're offering compensation, political favors, anything to prevent, and I quote, the Ghost's complete dismantling of their organization. Tell them no deals, James said firmly. But tell them this, my daughter is off limits. In fact, any human child is off limits. If they forget this lesson, next time I won't be so gentle. The Admiral grinned. I'll make sure they get the message. And James, it's good to see this side of you again. The galaxy needed a reminder. After the transmission ended, Emma turned to her father. What happens now? We can't exactly go back to our quiet life on Mars. Why not? Because everyone knows who you are now, who we are. James plotted their course back to Mars. Good. Let them know. Let them remember that humans aren't just another species trying to find their place in the galaxy. We're the species that crossed the void between stars before we had unified our own world. We're the ones who terraform planets just because we can. And we're the ones who will tear apart half the galaxy to protect what we love. Emma thought about this as the stars streaked by. Dad, could you teach me more? Not just the basics, but the real skills. The ones that made you the Ghost. Are you sure that's what you want? She nodded. The galaxy should know that all humans are capable of being dangerous when we need to be. Not just the Ghost. James looked at his daughter with pride. She had faced kidnapping, imprisonment, and the deadliest planet in known space, and had emerged stronger. Just like humanity always did. Okay, he agreed. But we do this right, starting with how to properly reprogram a food dispenser. Emma laughed, and the sound echoed through the ship as they headed home. Behind them, the story of the Ghost and his daughter was already spreading through the galaxy's underworld. It would become a warning, a reminder that humans were different. They weren't the strongest or the most advanced species. They were simply the ones you should never, ever underestimate.